Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Sade. We're here to talk about grief. So I have lost a few family members, but at the end of the day, most of them, grandparents, granduncles, great grandma, people who are a bit older, people who, you know, at least with my grandma, she was young enough where, we definitely expected to have her for more time. But I would say most everyone else, it's like they were in their 80s or 90s. So, like, it was very understandable that it was their time. Now, so I did have experience with grief in those times, but I lost my dad in 2020, not COVID related. Um, and the way he went out was very shocking, very traumatizing. Like, there wasn't really any indication that he was anything other than healthy. He was there one night and gone in the morning, kind of thing. Um, Although, he didn't go in his sleep, like, it was not peaceful. But it was just that instantaneous, where from one day to the next, your life is like completely different. He actually mounted my degree, my college degree, on the wall for me in my room the night before he passed. I actually recently took it down because my mom actually is finally moving out of the apartment. Um, so yeah. Anyway, um, although I think that every person you lose has an impact on you, every loss is different, and I do think that losing a parent um, is definitely a big one. You know, it's definitely up there with the kinds of grief that like really kind of change you. And there are many days which I am emotional about it, and there are other days where there is a calm and a peace and understanding that everything happens for a reason. And I'm just grateful for the ways in which I've grown. And I'm grateful for the fact that I am not someone who necessarily leaves things on the table. Like, if I care about you, you know that I care about you. I tell you. Um, so I don't have many regrets when it comes to people that I've lost. And so I feel blessed for that. And I also think that there is an emphasis in our society on trauma and, PTSD, right? Versus post traumatic growth. And I do feel like in the wake of losing a parent, I had a lot of post traumatic growth. Were there a lot of hard times? Absolutely. Would not recommend. Except that regardless of whether I recommend it or not, unless you're the one in your life dying, you will experience loss one day. It depends on who, it depends on how much. Some people take biggie hits when they're young. Some people, are the ones who go. And so they won't experience much loss, but they will also have a shorter life, right? So death is an inevitable part of life. And so I've never been afraid of death for myself, but I've never really contemplated what it would be like to lose someone very close to me until it happened. Um, and now, yeah, there are times where when people don't answer the phone or I haven't heard from someone in a little while and I've been reaching out, it does cross my mind, what if they're dead? And that is something that I think when you lose someone in particular in a shocking way, whether it's an accident or whatever, where it's like there was a time which you might have called and they didn't answer, and that meant that they were dead. You know what I'm saying? So like when you've experienced that, it's kind of hard to like not know that feeling, to not know that dread, or the feeling of someone getting on the phone and saying, I have something to tell you, and thinking, oh my gosh, who's dead? Those are kind of things that you don't really understand until you've lost people in your life. And in particular, if you've lost a lot of people where you've had multiples of those conversations, you're really familiar with that feeling. Um, so the point that I want to talk about is just like a little bit of my perspective on grief. Everyone kind of knows it. Tell the people you love them, give people their flowers while they're here. We understand these things, but in some ways they become repeated cliches that fade into the background. And I'm here to tell you that we are very much mortal. Each day is very much not guaranteed. And so please take that on and really implement it in your relationships. Okay, so time to actually get into the things that I wrote. Yeah, I would say, okay, so I kind of spoke to this a little bit, but a lot of people speak to the element of oh, I can't imagine what you're going through, right? Whether you can imagine it now means absolutely nothing. Unless you're dying, you will know what it means to have lost someone close to you at some point in your life. That's just inevitable. And it doesn't mean that you need to live in fear or live in dread of it. It is just a natural part of life. And I think I have a greater appreciation for life because I understand how finite and how fleeting. And it's something that I say to my mom all the time because she's like, okay, all right, I hear you. But I'm like, certain times when she's like, oh, we're just gonna do this, you're gonna do that. I'm like, but that's a waste of my time, right? And I don't feel like I have time to waste because on my deathbed, I'm not gonna wish that I spent more time doing XYZ thing that I don't care about, I don't think is important. I'm gonna wish that I spent more time doing things, creating memories, really living a full life. And I'm not saying, well, people have this thought process of well, what would you do if you were going to die tomorrow? Well, I surely wouldn't do laundry. I surely wouldn't spend time meal prepping. You know what I'm saying? But we do need to live to some extent with longevity in mind, because that kind of life, the kind of I could die tomorrow life, is not sustainable. I wouldn't put money in my retirement fund, or I wouldn't do XYZ thing if I didn't think that longevity was an option. But I think that sometimes we do put off to tomorrow way too much, and we do center things or spend so much time on things that aren't really important. And so I think in the face of death, in the face of grief, in the face of loss, it is very clarifying what is important. And again, it's not necessarily this great sense of zen that I, maybe I could have gotten that some other way and I would have preferred to get that some other way, but I have it and I'm grateful for it, right? And it's not necessarily something that every single person gets through grief. And even if you do, it's something that you have to continually remind yourself of. It's one of those epiphanies that can fit into the background when you get wrapped up in the day-to-day of things. I definitely think to myself when it comes to certain issues, certain conflicts, certain insecurities, whatever it is, 5 years from now, will you care about this? On your deathbed, will you care about this? Will you wish that you spent as much time as you did worrying about it? If the answer is no, it's not important. So, or it doesn't need to be stressing you out as much as stressing you out. Because some stuff is well, I do need to resolve this, issue at work or whatever. Am I going to be thinking about it on my deathbed? No. Am I going to be wishing I spent more time on this? No. But I do need to resolve it, right? So sometimes it's well, I still have to deal with it, but do I need to give it the stress that I'm giving it? No. So just different framing. Okay. This point that I have is more for the immediacy of grief, right? People sometimes, when you're going through stuff, I'm here if you need anything. Instead of, if you are serious about it, right? Because some people say, I'm here if you need me, I'm here to talk, whatever. And they don't really mean it. It's just a platitude, it's a nicety. I don't fault people for it. But if you really mean it, if you really want people in your life, and this doesn't have to go for grief, this can go for anyone who you in your life that you know is going through a bad time or you suspect is going through a bad time. Instead of saying, if you need anything, I'm here, pick a thing that you think would be helpful and say, I'm thinking about doing this. Is that helpful? And if they say yes, great, you do it, because then you're now setting the term of your support. So it's a nice thing for you also because you get to set the term of your support and choose something that you feel comfortable doing, right? It's not a blank check, even though it's nice to write a blank check. But sometimes when people are going through what they're going through, they don't know what they need. They don't know what they need, and they don't want to spend the mental energy of like, oh, well, should I ask this person for that? Blah, blah, blah. Is it too much or whatever? So you sit there and you offer what it is that you offer. Maybe you can give a few options. Say like, I would really love to do this for you. Would that be helpful? And then, so you're not putting yourself out in a way that like isn't helpful for the person, but so that you're not putting the burden of them to think up what they need, to ask you, because like they're going through a lot right now. So sometimes they do need help, but they don't really know where, or they don't want to spend the mental energy to figure out what is the best thing to ask for, right? So yeah, so instead of saying, if there's anything I can do, pick a thing and offer it, you know? And sometimes you're just saying it to be nice, and that's a different journey. Pick a thing or pick a few things and say, I would like to do this or this or this for you, or all these things for you, or any of these things helpful. And if they say yes, great. If not, maybe you sparked so that they're like, okay, not this, but that. And then they can, you know, come back to you, and that you've done some of the mental energy for them. Because a big thing for me with grief and with deep sadness, I'm very tired and very exhausted. You're just like mentally consumed. So like, no, I don't want to come up with mask, you know? And you also don't know what people are comfortable with. So once you give them an idea of the things that you're thinking of, then they can kind of come back to you with something that's like in that vein, that's maybe better for them. So they kind of have an understanding of like, okay, these are the things that they're willing to do. So maybe they'd be willing to do X, Y, Z thing. So yeah, so that's something maybe in the immediacy of grief. And then also death anniversaries. I would say this, for anyone who can remember, oh, this is said loved one's birthday, who they've lost, said loved ones, the anniversary of their death, the anniversary of their funeral, if you can remember any of those dates. At least for me, because I've lost a parent, Father's Day, like, if you can remember those kind of days in which they might be sadder, or the time of year, because my dad's birthday is in November and he passed in November. So early November, all of it was early November. So between November 5th and November 10th, that's a hard time of year for me, right? So if you can remember that as someone who's trying to be there for someone in grief, those are the times where it would be really helpful to show up even going forward, not just in the immediacy of grief, but over the long term. So yeah, that's if you want to go the extra mile. If you're like that person that's like, I feel so bad and I really want to help, I don't know how, those are some ideas. Now, for me personally, everyone's grief is different. I enjoyed a lot of alone time, and that really helped me work through some stuff. Also reading books, watching shows, consuming media that like made me cry, like that was helpful, because like sometimes I just felt sad, but I wasn't all the way there to cry. And so I would watch things, and certain things would just bring me over the edge, and it would like be so cathartic for me, right? But I'm not a crier around other people. I hate crying around other people. I hate getting upset around other people. So I didn't feel like I could process collectively. I had to process on my own. And that may not be the case for me forever, but that's the way that I was. But some people do like a lot of company, and they don't mind crying in front of others. Again, and grief is different for everyone. It can change you and make you want things that you didn't want before. But sometimes people are going to need their alone time. It depends on the person. But I would say, so maybe in the immediacy of grief, you don't necessarily want to be on top of someone. Maybe you don't know what to do then. But over the long term, I'd say something that has a big impact is remembering important dates for that person and being there for them. Say, do you need anything? Oh, are you doing anything with your family for this day? If not, would you want company? Like those kinds of things, right? Very helpful. And it depends on who you lost, because maybe you lost a partner, and so maybe you wouldn't do stuff with your family, but maybe you do something with their family, but maybe they're far away, so you don't get to do it on every single important date. Like, feel out the situation. But those would be some suggestions on how to be there for someone during grief. And I will likely do another video. Like, I definitely am going to do a video of like things not to say and blah, blah, blah. So maybe in there, I'll also do some more tips on what to do. But those are some like very big suggestions. Those are probably my top suggestions. So You can definitely run with that if you're watching this and that's why you're watching it, because maybe you want to understand what you can do for someone that you love who's going through it. You need to do your research on this, but stages of grief are BS. Okay, not to say that like no one goes through grief in that specific framework, but that whole like anger, denial, this, that, and the third. Many people do not go through all of those 5 stages, maybe even any of those 5 stages, and not necessarily in that order. One thing that I've noticed about grief, and the one thing that my when I was dealing with grief and stuff like that, a counselor that I spoke to, they said is that grief is more cyclical. So you have ups and downs, and it kind of goes around, and maybe like as I spoke about, there's important dates. So maybe on those important dates every year you're in a specific place, right? There's good days and there's bad days. And so like there were days even early on in losing my parent that like I felt okay. But it was more so that there were probably more bad days than good. And then as time went on, there were more good days than bad. But like there are still days sometimes where I literally wake up and my first thought is my dad is dead. And those are usually the hard days, right? And so it's coming up on 4 years. And it's cyclical. Like some days it feels like it was a long time ago. And some days it feels so fresh and so unbelievable. And so it's really a cycle, and it's really up and down. And there's some days where I'm willing to talk about things, whether it's happy memories, whether it's not happy memories. Some days it's a scar, some days it's a wound, right? I saw someone, I'm forgetting, speak about this, but you speak when you're sharing in public, online, whatever it is, maybe you're writing about it. You talk about scars, not wounds. Don't talk about things while you're specifically like still healing from them. With grief, for me, it's a cycle. So some days it's a scar, some days it's a wound, some days I'm okay to talk about it, some days I'm not. That's more accurate than this stage of grief, and you're going through all these stages and then you hit acceptance. Like it's not linear like that. My specific, up and down journey, and what gets me to a low, or what gets me to, a good place is different, going to be different from for everyone else than from, it's going to be different than other people's. But I promise you, it's not this linear stages of grief crap. Like, no. I look into it, like, because, yeah, that lady just kind of made stuff up. And not to say that it wasn't an educated guess, but it was a guess. Anyway, and then everyone just like kind of took that on and like ran with it. And I think it's very unhelpful as someone who's grieving when you're not going through it in this way, where, yeah, it's just not helpful, in my opinion. In my opinion, who am I? I'm a lady on the internet. I have only lived this one life. And so if you disagree, you disagree. But I'm just telling you that it's not this like foregone social scientific psychological conclusion that we have these stages and blah blah blah. It's not, in my opinion, a helpful framework. Last 2 things I'm going to talk about is the fact that in the beginning, for me, there was an overarching melancholy. I just couldn't access joy in this visceral way that I felt I had in the past, and I thought I was forever changed. That was for a time. And eventually I got to a place where I was able to experience the joy in life. But one thing that I have noticed is that on special occasions, big moments, I miss my dad. And I think like, oh, I wish you were here. And so like, and especially big milestones that I have yet to experience, I would like to one day be married. Like that is definitely a time where I believe I will miss him. There's the father-daughter dance, and you get walked down the aisle, and these are things that like I will not get to do with my father. And like he's definitely that type of person who really loves those milestone moments, who really wanted to take a beat and really celebrate you. And he was always my biggest cheerleader, and so I know he would have really stepped up and really been involved in that planning and really enjoy those moments with me. I'm planning on going back to school. Like, that'll be the first graduation that I've had that he hasn't been there for, you know? And I understand my experience is my experience. I was blessed that I had a dad who was so involved, you know? Many people cannot say that. So I'm grateful for the times that he was there. But it does put a melancholy on big events going forward. And so that's something that, if you're trying to understand people who are grieving, like, that's something that might come up. And I actually was watching Grey's Anatomy. If you continue to watch this channel, there's no way you're not going to hear me talk about Grey's Anatomy 1,000 times, because I freaking love that show. Particularly the earlier seasons, like season like 1 through 8. Like, I don't know, like, I haven't finished it, so I don't know about the later seasons, because I kind of fell off after McDreamy died. But there's an episode where Callie and Arizona are getting married, and Arizona comes out of the bathroom and she's crying. And I believe it's Mark who's like, "What's wrong?" And she's like thinking about her brother. And she's like, he was supposed to be there today. She remembers talking about when she came out and how the first question he had for her was, "So you're going to marry a chick now? Or does that mean you're going to marry a chick?" And she's like, "Yeah." And he's like, "I can't wait. I'm going to dance so hard at your wedding." And now he's not there. And so, like, a day that would have been pure joy is now laced with some level of sadness. And I really appreciated that, because it was so accurate. It's like, you can be so happy, but then when you really think about who's not there, you're like, you know, you're really sad. So anyway, as you can see, I'm getting emotional about it. I feel like that was a very, like, accurate and real depiction of grief, and so I appreciated that. Okay. That one got me. All right. Last thing. With every person that you love, you're opening yourself up to loss. Whether that means that it's not going to work out and you're no longer going to be friends, you're no longer going to be in a relationship, but also death is imminent. We are mortal. And so I understand that very intimately now. And yes, I have an element of fear, but it does also make life more immediate. I don't want to leave anything on the table when it comes to my relationships. And so that urgency is beautiful. And that is one of the ways in which I've grown around my grief, right? And kind of circling back to the point I made about post-traumatic growth. So many people say, "Oh, well, like, time heals all wounds, and like, it fades, you know, the sadness fades over time." And I think it's less that the sadness fades over time, but it's that you grow around it. You become stronger and more emotionally resilient around it. And when I say emotionally resilient, I feel like I feel emotions more sharply than I did in the past. But I'm more resilient. I bounce back quicker. I'm more able to say, this is what it is right now, but it won't be forever, right? But that doesn't mean that it won't be back. It comes and it goes, right? So I don't think that I'm that much less sad. I am somewhat less sad, but I think more so I've grown around my grief, not that it's gotten smaller. And so it's not this simple time heals all wounds thing, because that somewhat implies that at one point it will no longer be sad, and it will always be sad, but you're more able to deal with that sadness. And as a result, you're more able to deal with all of the emotions that come with being alive. And I think that is a blessing. And so I do feel like I've grown so much as a person. I've matured so much as a person. Yeah. When I look back on pre-loss me, I'm a completely different person. But at the same time, I also was 23. And so, you know, early to mid 20s is a different time than like late 20s. Like, I do expect similar levels of growth in general in life, but I will attribute a lot of lessons to grief and also to relationships, particularly romantic relationships. Because I think a lot of people frame certain things in life that are hard as like baggage, and I don't frame loss, grief, things ending, you know, mistakes made as baggage, and more so as hard-earned knowledge. And I think for me, it's because maybe I was going to learn the lessons anyway, but I'm very intentional about what is this teaching me? What is there to learn here? Because I don't want anything in my life to be a waste. That I can't abide. So it's going to happen. Bad things are going to come at you in life, but you get to choose whether you look at it as some meaningless, hard thing that you had to go through, or something that you grew from, something that you gained from. And I'm not saying that that means that then you're grateful for it. Some people take it to mean that. I think that's your journey. I'm not one who says that I'm grateful for my capital T traumas or the things that I've been through. Like, they happened and I made the best of it. That does not necessarily mean that I'm grateful. But I'm not here to tell you how to live your life. I'm just here to let you in on some hard-earned lessons of mine. And I will continue to do so, whether it's about grief, whether it's about other things. Hopefully that it helps someone. Yeah, I guess that's it. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much. If you made it to the end of the video, in the comments, tell me about someone that you lost. Tell me one of your favorite memories. I will read them all.